Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission here is always the same: to give you the shortcut to expertise by slicing through a dense stack of sources. Today, we're plunging into one of the most exciting yet globally underreported economic transformations happening right now. We're talking about how AI, blockchain, and sensor tech are quietly but fundamentally rewriting the future of trade across Africa.
And this is a massive continent-wide play. It's not just a few ports here and there. We're looking at a huge structural shift,
Right.
one that will really determine whether Africa can capitalize on the African Continental Free Trade Area, the AfCFTA. I mean, to really get a sense of the stakes here,
Right.
maritime transport is the backbone of something like 80% of global trade.
80%.
Right. But for most lower-income nations, that reliance is even higher. Our sources are pretty clear that when a major port improves, the entire national economy feels it. Take the port of Mombasa in Kenya. Its operations are estimated to contribute a full 10% to Kenya's entire GDP.
Wow, 10% of a country's GDP from just one port? That's staggering.
It shows you how the efficiency of a single port can literally shape a nation's destiny.
So that's really the mission of this deep dive: to unpack how these hubs are transforming from these congested relics of the past into digitized, seamless, smart ports, and how that's positioning the continent to handle this really ambitious trade future. But you're right, to appreciate the leap forward, we have to grasp just how bad the problem was. Our sources paint a very, very clear picture of the old reality on the ground. Before this tech wave arrived, the whole logistics ecosystem was just defined by friction. You had fragmented infrastructure, chronically poor data visibility, and customs procedures that were, well, they were notoriously bureaucratic and unpredictable.
It's that structural inefficiency that really put a ceiling on growth. If you look at the core metrics, the comparison is just startling. So the global standard for cargo dwell time, that's the time a container just sits in port waiting to be processed, is about 3 to 4 days.
Okay, 3 to 4 days, that's the global benchmark.
Correct. Now, across the majority of African ports, the average dwell time is around 20 days.
20?
20 days. Sometimes much longer. That's not just a few lost hours. That's 3 weeks of capital, of goods, of opportunity, just held hostage by friction.
And that downtime must translate directly into astronomical losses. I mean, can we even quantify that cost?
Oh, absolutely. The congestion cost alone is a huge drain. Take the port of Lagos in Nigeria back in 2021. It's a critical gateway for West Africa, and it had such severe bottlenecks that ships were sometimes waiting up to 80 days just to get a berth.
80 days.
Yeah.
Just waiting.
Yes. And that period of crippling congestion cost the Nigerian economy an estimated $55 million a day.
55 million a day.
A day in lost economic activity. If you think about what that means, in just 2 weeks, that's enough money to fund hundreds of kilometers of new roads or critical energy projects.
That really drives the point home. This is an inefficiency debt these economies have been forced to carry for decades. And it wasn't just physical jams, right? The paper trail was its own nightmare.
Exactly. The human and paper interface just compounded the problem. Customs clearances at key East African ports like Mombasa historically averaged 12 days. The global average is 5 or 6. So you had multiple layers of inspection, duplicate paperwork, and of course, plenty of opportunity for fraud and extortion because the data wasn't unified or verifiable. This is the decade-long problem that AI and blockchain are now, finally being tasked to correct.
Okay, let's unpack this transformation. We're moving from the traditional port to the smart port. What does that word smart actually mean in this context?
A smart port, as our sources describe it, is basically the fourth phase of port evolution. It really started emerging post-2010. It's defined by replacing manual processes with automation and relying on these clean, paperless, digitally connected systems. And crucially, it leverages real-time data to let the port anticipate demand, manage resources proactively, and optimize every single movement.
So if the smart port is the body, what are the brains and the central nervous system? I know we're focusing on AI and blockchain, but for those to work, you need constant data. Which brings us to the unsung hero, right? The Internet of Things, or IoT.
That's exactly right. The sensor layer, the IoT, is the nervous system. You have sensors on cranes, trackers on trucks, digital tags on containers monitoring everything, temperature, vibration, location. This constant stream of data, and we're talking petabytes of information a day, gets fed into the AI layer.
And what does the AI layer, the brain, do with all that input?
It basically does 2 critical things: prediction and optimization. On the prediction side, you have predictive analytics. So AI algorithms analyze historical trends, weather, shipping schedules, to forecast cargo volumes weeks, even months in advance. This lets managers allocate berths, hire staff, deploy cranes exactly when and where they're needed. It helps avoid those congestion crises we just talked about.
And the optimization side, that's the actual physical movement of the goods.
It is. AI drives intelligent automation. This can mean automated cranes stacking containers in the most efficient way or optimizing truck routes within the terminal to cut down on idling and fuel use. It also handles what's called predictive maintenance. It analyzes sensor data from cranes, loaders, power grids to predict a failure before it happens. That allows for scheduled downtime, not catastrophic downtime.
It's impressive how quickly this is translating into real-world use in Africa. I saw some fascinating details in the sources about companies applying this not just to the ports, but the whole supply chain.
Precisely. This isn't just theory. In Nigeria, you have Kobo 360, which is a fantastic example. They use predictive algorithms to optimize fleet management for trucks. In Kenya, there's Twiga Foods, leveraging data-driven routing to shorten agricultural supply chains, getting food from farms to markets faster than ever. This integrated approach is key.
Which brings us to the second critical piece of tech in the stack, blockchain. People hear blockchain and they immediately think crypto. But here, its job is to be the trust protocol for global trade.
That is the perfect way to frame it. The core of blockchain decentralization, immutability, transparency. It directly attacks the systemic lack of trust. I mean, you have carriers, customs, banks, shippers. They're all competing stakeholders. But because the blockchain ledger is tamper-proof and shared, everyone has a single, trustworthy version of the truth. That's revolutionary.
So how does it work in practice? If blockchain solves the trust issue, what's the biggest technical hurdle left?
The hurdle is integration, but the benefit is automation. Functionally, blockchain enables automated trade finance through what are called smart contracts. Think of a smart contract as a digital vending machine for cargo. Payment isn't released because a person signs a form. It's released automatically the moment the blockchain verifies certain conditions are met.
And the IoT sensors feed into that smart contract.
They provide the verifiable proof. For example, a contract might say, payment for frozen beef is released only when the container, 1, arrives at the warehouse, verified by GPS, and 2, the temperature log has stayed below -18 Celsius for the whole trip, verified by a sensor. It just eliminates all that bureaucratic lag. Pilot projects have shown this can cut documentation processing times by up to 80% and administrative costs by up to 50%.
That's the kind of efficiency you need if the AFRI-FTA is going to work across 54 countries. We've seen the tech. Now let's shift focus. Because where tech meets massive trade potential, you get enormous capital and global power plays. Who's leading this digital modernization?
The continent's undisputed leader right now is Morocco's Tangerbed. It's Africa's smartest port, a crucial hub connecting Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. Its success is built on a fully digital customs system. They've also implemented just-in-time, or JIT, solutions, which drastically cuts the time ships spend waiting at anchor. That saves money and cuts emissions. They even partnered with a tech firm, Wurzeli, to co-develop a bespoke port management system to digitize the entire port call process.
But it's not just limited to North Africa. We're seeing this digital leapfrog strategy being adopted across the continent.
Absolutely. The progress is accelerating. Nigeria, for example, launched the Eto e-call-up system. It's been crucial in reducing the traffic congestion and, critically, the extortion that plagued the roads around the port of Lagos. The Nigerian Ports Authority is ambitious. They're aiming for a fully digital, paperless system by 2025.
And these changes, they show up immediately in the national revenue figures, don't they?
They do. Ghana implemented a paperless port system back in 2017 to reduce human interface. In Benin, the effort to get all their systems customs, port, the national single window to talk to one another, led to an increase in public revenue of over 30%.
So 30% more revenue just from efficiency.
Exactly. And you see it in South Africa, too. Durban Port has been using AI for predictive maintenance and drones for infrastructure inspection since 2016.
You know, that's a critical point for you, the listener. Our sources highlight that African nations are, in some ways, benefiting from not having these decades of legacy systems. While the EU struggles to harmonize all these diverse port systems, several African nations have made the strategic choice to implement a single national platform.
And that centralized approach, which you see clearly in places like Côte d'Ivoire and Benin, is viewed by experts as far more efficient. It's better for coordination, for security, and for achieving the uniform standards the FCFTA requires. They're building it right from the ground up.
Okay, so let's connect this tech race to the bigger picture. Geopolitics. This kind of transformation doesn't happen in a vacuum. The ATFTA goal, creating the world's largest free trade area, it requires this seamless digital backbone.
It absolutely does.
Hmm.
It needs predictive intelligence for logistics firms to anticipate border bottlenecks and manage tariffs across 54 different economies. And the investment is following that potential. The African Development Bank is supporting AI innovation corridors, and private equity funds are funneling capital into these projects. A group called the Africa Investment Consortium has secured huge deals to build out smart ports in key nations like Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, Ghana, and Tanzania.
That kind of momentum immediately puts Africa at the center of a pretty intense geopolitical competition, doesn't it? The physical need alone is enormous. Billions in investment to handle 2 billion tons of throughput by 2040.
It creates a clear battleground for global influence. And right now, China is the largest foreign player, dominating in physical construction and ownership. They're Africa's largest trading partner, dwarfing U.S.-Africa trade by a factor of 4. But our sources flag some serious concerns about this influence.
What are the main risks associated with that model of heavy Chinese investment?
Well, the concerns are mainly around opaque contracts and unsustainable debt financing. The classic cautionary tale here is the Sri Lanka Hambantota port. The Sri Lankan government couldn't repay the debt used to build the port, so they were forced to lease the asset to a Chinese state-owned firm for 99 years. This debt-for-equity model is a significant long-term vulnerability.
And beyond the debt, there's the tech risk, the literal cranes moving the containers.
Exactly. This is the new frontier. A Chinese company, ZPMC, makes about 70% of the world's container cranes, including 80% of the ones in U.S. ports. These aren't simple machines anymore. They are smart cranes, packed with sensors. When these are connected to state-owned logistics platforms like LogInc, the data security implications are profound.
Why is a crane sensor a national security risk? It's just moving boxes.
It's about data harvesting at scale. Those sensors track the real-time movement, origin, destination, maybe even the contents of every piece of cargo. A foreign government with access to that data could potentially interfere with supply chains, track strategic goods, or gather incredibly valuable economic intelligence. Control of the data layer is now far more valuable than the physical dock itself.
So the U.S. and its allies have had to devise a counter-strategy focusing on what they do best: advanced tech and transparency.
That's the competitive advantage they're leveraging. We're seeing intense competition now from non-Chinese players. You have DP World securing a billion-dollar deal in Senegal, and the recent massive acquisition of Bolloré Africa Logistics, the biggest transport operator in Africa by the Mediterranean Shipping Company. The race is shifting from who can build the most concrete to who can secure and control the most efficient digital operating systems.
So for all the promise here, we have to remind the listener that this transition is incredibly complex. It's not just about installing new hardware. What are the major barriers that are still on the ground?
Well, even the smartest systems fail without stable foundations. So infrastructural limits are a constant challenge. Unstable power, unreliable internet. These can cripple a cloud-based AI solution. And then there's the human capacity challenge. You have a lack of a skilled workforce and, crucially, resistance to change from personnel who have worked with paper systems their whole lives. Continuous training is non-negotiable.
But the ultimate risk to this entire digital revolution, the one that surpasses all the others, has to be cybersecurity.
It's the single largest vulnerability, without a doubt. Digitizing a port creates an enormous attack surface. The World Bank reported that cyber attacks on the maritime industry surged by 400% between February and May 2020. A successful breach doesn't just halt local operations, it creates global cascade effects.
We all remember the famous Maersk example.
The 2017 Maersk virus attack, not Petya, is the perfect illustration. It wasn't even a targeted port attack, it was a worm that came from an infected Ukrainian tax software. But because Maersk's systems were interconnected, it shut down operations globally, including the huge Rotterdam port terminal, for over a week. The cost was in the hundreds of millions. It shows how interconnected the vulnerability is.
And the risk isn't just from nation-states, but from organized crime, too.
Absolutely. The 2013 Antwerp port breach showed that, where drug cartels hacked the port's IT systems to track their own containers and remotely reroute drug shipments. So robust, continuous cybersecurity training and risk evaluation, they're essential to protect against both state and criminal actors.
So the path forward really needs a multi-pronged approach. Comprehensive digital roadmaps supported by public-private partnerships. PAPs seem essential, not just for the financing, but for making sure skills and knowledge are actually transferred along with the tech.
If it's executed strategically, yes. This shift from fragmented, decades-old inefficiency to a future driven by real-time data, AI, and secure protocols could position Africa's logistics ecosystem to become one of the most dynamic in the world. It really could turn historical weaknesses into a cutting-edge competitive advantage.
We've seen that the global competition for influence in African ports, particularly between China focusing on infrastructure and Western partners focusing on advanced tech and data, is intense. And this raises an important question for you. Will this geopolitical competition for access and digital superiority inadvertently accelerate the development of secure, efficient, world-class logistics corridors across the continent far faster than domestic investment alone could have achieved? Thank you for diving deep with us.